Welcome to the third in a series of videos designed to help you become a better jammer using pentatonic scales. In the first lesson we focused on the D pentatonic scale off the open string, and we moved it to G. The exact same pattern, just moved over. We could move it down to A. And by the time we were done, we had a way to jam against the 1, 4, and 5 chords in the key of D. In lesson 2, we added notes to that simple 2-string pattern to where we had notes on all 4 strings. For D, and for G, and then again it changed for A. But in this video we are going to show you how to use a movable form where all the notes are fully fretted and then we can play all around the neck in all keys. So we're going to switch to the key of A to begin this video, and to do that we're going to come up with a closed position scale for A, and the easiest way to think of it is go back to your G pentatonic scale off the open string and add 2 frets to each of those notes. So instead of starting open, start at the 2nd fret. You then will have frets 4, 6. When you move to string 3, you'll have frets 2, 4, and 7. So we're going to need to get used to using our pinky. For the moment, when we go to the 4 chord in the key of A, it will be D, and we'll continue to use the open D pattern for the moment. To play the E pattern in the key of A, we are going to just take the A pentatonic pattern and move it over and begin on this E note on string 3. So that's the pattern from root to root. In the diagram here we have 2 more notes, and then we play the pattern that we're using for this demonstration. We'll talk about how to use those 2 extra notes a little further into the video. So to give you an idea of how I can jam using these patterns, I'm going to play 2 measures of A, 2 D, 2 E, and back to 2 A. Going back to a couple of the tips that we used in the previous videos, one was, okay, so there we started out going from the low notes to the high notes, but when I played the E pattern, I came back to the note A right here and then played down the pattern. So don't get stuck always starting at the low note of the pattern and going up. You may want to start high and go low. So we now are going to show you that we could take this one movable pattern that we learned in A, we now have it in E. We can now play in the key of E if we also include the pattern starting right here on the 2nd string for B. So 1, 4, 5 in the key of E is E, A, and B. A tip that we included in our previous videos to help your jamming sound a little better is when you're moving from one pattern to the next to target a chord tone within the chord that you're going to. So I'm noodling in E. It's time to go to A. I land on this C sharp note, which is in the A chord. Not all the notes in the pentatonic scale are in the background chord. So that's just a tip to help your playing sound a little more polished. Here's a demonstration of playing in the key of E using the 1, 4, 5 patterns E, A, and B. With this one movable pattern, we can take everything we learned in the key of E and move it up one fret, and we'll be playing in the key of F. So when you have the pattern on the middle two strings, strings 2 and 3, and you treat that as your one chord, F, the notes for the 4 chord will always move up to strings 4 and 3. So here's your B flat. And when you need the notes for your 5 chord, you can find them by moving down to strings 2 and 1. So 1, 4, and 5 in the key of F is F, B flat, and C. Moving up 2 frets higher, we get to everybody's favorite key, the key of G. And I like to think of these 2 notes here as coming out of this G modal chord. And you have the option to add your 3rd finger here and have a complete G chord. But you can see how the pattern just relates to that. And it helps explain these 2 extra notes we've been adding to these patterns, but up to now haven't been playing. So at that point you want to know where your root is so that your ideas sound complete. The root for the G is on the 3rd string, 5th fret. Playing the key of G up in this position is said to be playing in the 3rd position. Positions are found by your first finger covering 2 frets. So the first position's down here, frets 1 and 2. Position 2 is frets 3 and 4, but now we're all the way up to where our first finger starts on fret 5. You've seen good mandolin players play out of this position all the time for the key of G. There's a lot of nice little kickoffs to songs that start right here on the 7th fret of the 4th string, that D note. So I was using my G pentatonic scale. The D chord is coming in this introduction. It's a 1-5-1 introduction. So here's my D pentatonic. And then finally I will wrap it up coming back to G. Just like I mentioned that I like to use this shape to help me realize where my pentatonic is. For the G, I like to use this shape for my C chord, the 4 chord in the key. You can think of the scale as coming off of those 2 notes from this C chord. So there will be times when the progression's going to go from 1 to 4, but instead of coming back to 1, it's going to go straight to 5. And at that point, it sounds a little weird to go from the 1 to the 4 and then jump all the way up to strings 1 and 2 for your 5 pattern. So what you can do is take the pattern that you figured out for 4, in this case C, and just move it up 2 frets. You'll have another D pattern, an octave lower than the one we had up here. So we give you an idea of how to do a nice little kickoff for a song. You'll also want to know how to have a nice conclusion to your solo, and for that you're going to want to have some nice tag licks. So if we're in the key of G, you can think of landing on your G note and then adding some extra notes that provide space before the singer's going to come back in. So that was low to high. You could also start on this high G and work your way back down. By the way, just remember, if you're more on the beginner side trying all this out, you don't have to play all the extra notes you hear me playing. You can just play long quarter notes or even half notes. Just just to get it started, whatever it takes to learn how to do it, and then add some more fancy stuff. We'll now conclude by giving you a practice track to play along with. We'll first demonstrate going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord to the 5 chord, back to 1, and then I'll drop out my lead playing and you'll be able to take over there. You'll hear 5 clicks before I come in, and that shows you how that little introduction works. So pick along and have a good time.